This is quite a story here, I must say. This isn't a raw story. Company owner forced over a dozen workers into slavery. This is according to the feds. A Florida contractor was sentenced to nearly a decade in prison in order to repay more than a dozen workers he forced into slavery. Vladimir Moreno, a Bartow farm labor contractor, pleaded guilty December 29 to conspiracy to commit forced labor and racketeering charges after federal prosecutors said he recruited workers in Mexico, made them pay to work for Los Villatoros Harvesting, and lied about their housing and pay once they arrived in Florida, reported the Miami Herald. LVH and its recruiters manipulated the workers by withholding their pay, violated federal law by moving them to an unapproved Florida farm, and then intermittently to Kentucky and Indiana to harvest watermelons for Wachila's Carlton Farms, which does business as Sunfresh Farms, and that fruit was sold to Walmart and Kroger. So the watermelons that you buy, some of them from Walmart and Kroger, were flat out made with slave labor. Jesus Christ, man. This reminds me of, what was it, that Supreme Court case where the Supreme Court basically said Nestle is like legally allowed to do slavery and you know, have people who they get some of their products from countries that are using slavery, and they're like, hey man, it's too far down the chain for us to really give a shit or do anything about it. I remember covering that story when it broke, and that guy Neil Kashkari, I think, was one of the lawyers in it on the side of the slavery. So insane. We covered a story relatively recently, similar to this, about slavery that was busted. I think it was in South Carolina in that story. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, this is modern day stuff. Modern day stuff. Now, by the way, even the ones who are not slaves, like let's say a different watermelon company, I'm sure a lot of the people working in the fields doing the real hard work are undocumented immigrants, and they're probably getting paid less than a living wage anyway. So take your choice. It's like indentured servitude or slavery at the bottom of the chain here. We have an economy that's built on flat-out exploitation. And when you look at this, it's hard to say good things about capitalism looking at this, right? Isn't it? Because you guys know the trick. You guys know how it works. There's a Victims of Communism museum in Washington, D.C., where they talk about, oh, look, all the death count related from communism and socialism, bro. This is crazy, bro. Right across the street from the Victims of Communism museum is a park where there's like dozens and dozens of homeless tents and homeless encampments and probably 70 homeless people. Now, are those people in that park who are homeless victims of capitalism? My guess is the people who work at the Victims of Communism Museum will be like, no, bro, that's their problem. That's their own fault. It's their individual issue. So let me get this straight. The negatives and the ills that are a byproduct of capitalism are not the fault of capitalism, but the negatives and the ills that are a byproduct of socialism are the fault of socialism. I don't know, man. I don't know. That doesn't seem right to me. Seems like you have to have a consistent standard in one direction or the other. Anyway, let's continue. LVH and its recruiters manipulated the workers. Oh, we already did that part. Other melons packed in Indiana were by a distributor to chains such as Kroger, Schnucks, and Sam's Club. Moreno's guilty plea indicated he knew that about 6 workers were living in a single hotel room. Jesus Christ. And 75 more were housed in a warehouse. Oh my God. And investigators found that workers lacked their own beds or packed with more than 4 in a room. A federal judge sentenced him to 9 years and 10 months in federal prison with $173,125 restitution to 17 of the workers, which comes out to an average of $10,118 per worker. I'd love to know how that works out in terms of an hourly rate for them, depending on how many hours they worked, you know. Moreno was also a defendant in a North Carolina federal civil court class action lawsuit on similar complaints, and he was banned from participating in the H-2A temporary agricultural workers visa program and fined more than $203,000. There's exploitation left and right, man. I mean, the messed up thing is there are subtle forms of exploitation where they can sort of convince you it's not exploitation, and then there's just like overt, brazen forms of exploitation like this, where you have literal modern day slavery right under our nose in Florida. It seems to me like there is a lot that is structurally wrong with our system. Like, We need a page 1 rewrite. Just total top-down reformation. Change it all. Rip it up, start over, right? Because something like this that was just casually happening. How many more stories like this are out there where the feds did not catch on to it? And they did not bust the slavery ring, right? How? How'd that happen? How many? I'd be curious to know. I don't know if anybody has an analysis that sort of gives rough numbers on it, but Jesus, man, it's just so disconcerting. I mean, we talk all the time about, like, the working poor, people who work full-time and they don't make enough money to survive. We just did a story where nearly half of workers, the exact number was 37% of workers, work more than one full-time job. All these little things are just, they add up, and it's just astonishing how broken our system is. How disgusting it is. And then you see something like this, and it's just like, you know what? Time for something totally new, dog. Time for something totally new. Because I bet this is more widespread than anybody can imagine. Credit to the Miami Herald. Credit to everybody who did the work on this, because, you wouldn't know about it otherwise. And by the way, not a shout-out, anti-shout-out to CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, the Nightly News, and all the media outlets that are not going to touch this at all, right? Maybe they'll run an article or whatever, but is there going to be big breaking news, slavery found in Florida? They're not going to do it, because again, their outrage meter in the media is broken. It's broken. They don't know what's actually outrageous and messed up. They don't know their ass from their elbow, to steal a phrase that my dad used to use all the time. They just don't know, and they don't care. And so that's why you guys come here, which, doesn't say anything about how good I am. It's just to show you how bad mainstream media is. So that's terrible. Anyway, that's the show, guys. Sorry to end it on such a sad note, such a sour note here, but do me a favor, like and subscribe. Trying to get to 1 million subs. We're climbing, baby. We're climbing. So do me a favor, help us get there. Click that bell icon so you get a notification every time a video drops. You can also check out the full show now on Spotify. You get the full daily shows over on Spotify, so check that out if you haven't yet. And, what else I got for you? Of course, endless love to the Patreon supporters of this show. You guys make it work. Never talk to an advertiser. Never will. Don't need any corporate sponsors. We have you guys. We build it from the bottom up. And shout out to all the Substack supporters of Crystal Kyle and friends. You guys are awesome as well. And that's all I got for you, man. Much love. And hopefully I'll have some better news than modern-day slavery in the next show for you. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.